One race now in the books for Pro Motocross. What did it teach us for round two? We have your preview. Is Hangtown one of Eli Tomac's best tracks? Can anyone challenge Haiden Deegan? And what's up with Chase Sexton? Oh no! Sexton has gone down! Yeah, it's SMX Insider. We are the Jasons, Jason Weigandt, Jason Thomas, to preview round two of Pro Motocross, partly by looking back at round one, which is the 18th SMX round. Look, JT, we hyped the opener for Pro Motocross to the max, I think legitimately. But there was a moment where that hype was going down the drain. Chase Sexton, his struggles, which we'll talk about. Jorge Prado, probably not a performance he wanted, which we'll talk about. Jett Lawrence looking just like the 2023 Jett Lawrence. But that second moto, Eli Tomac was back and pushed him the way the fans have wanted to see for the last 2 years between these two. That kind of saved the day and sets the scene for Hangtown.
Yeah, this was so 2025 in my eyes, because in the end, we got a battle that delivered all the way down to the end of the race, but it wasn't necessarily how we thought it would go. You know, we lost Chase Sexton, which was a huge blow to the afternoon, but we still got this crazy battle where we didn't know what was going to happen with these protagonists that are likely going to stick around for the rest of the championship at the front. So in the end, great day for most, tough day for Chase Sexton, but on the entertainment scale and for the fans, this was a home run.
Yeah, and we've seen that Jett Lawrence managing the 1.5 to 3 second gap thing before. Doesn't it feel a little different when it's number 3 back there?
I just think it's more of the unknown, because we have rarely, if ever, seen anyone able to withstand Eli Tomac when he goes into that stratosphere, beast mode level, whatever you want to call it. When he goes there, it's usually curtains for everybody else. And that's been the question. Jett is the ultimate manager of that situation, and Eli has always been the ultimate buster of that situation. And it's that immovable object versus the unstoppable force, and which is going to win out. Well, so far, Jett has won that. In motocross, Eli's got the win in supercross. This is going to be an ongoing conversation that I don't think we can necessarily answer just yet.
That leads to the preview of Hangtown coming up this Saturday. Much to discuss on this show. Of course, the 250 class as well. Haiden Deegan living up to that hype by going 1-1 again at Fox Raceway, just like he did a year ago. Who impressed? Who needs to do better? Well, we'll get into a lot of that on this episode.
Okay, big interview time, and we have Christina Denny. Now, I'm not even sure how to address you, because you've taken on so many roles in the sport now. You have this lead position as part of the Motocross of Nations team. I always see you there. But specifically for today, I want to talk to you about the return last year and this year of the WMX program. How did we get here? And tell us about all the initiatives that are going on there.
Yeah, so I guess my role with the WMX would be WMX coordinator. I don't really have a role per se. I'm not an employee from MX Sports, and this role kind of came from an initiative when I took on a FIM Women's Commission seat. And I went to Switzerland and met with these women from all over the country, and listening and learning what they are doing in their respective sport in their country, and thought, I need to take an initiative and see what I could do here and bring back the women's motocross.
So a few months back, the team went over and raced in the Oceania Cup and against Charlie Cannon and Team Australia. And we followed along on this very show. Was that an opportunity to kind of work out some of that planning and see who could come over? Because we saw Charlie on the backside of a surgery show up and race here. So did that present opportunity to kind of align the two series?
For sure. So a lot of what the Australia trip meant to me is just getting to know these riders again, and getting to know what their needs are and what their wants, and kind of just get a kind of back in. I've always had a rider when we had the WMX racing back then, but I've never been involved in the side. So it was a cool thing to do, and really kind of get the time and, not only to see how they are racing competitively against each other, but other countries, but given the opportunity to really kind of make this series. I don't think at that time even Charlie was in coming over. It wasn't talked about there, and it wasn't till I got back and Yariv messaged me and said, hey, Charlie wants to come race. Can you help me? So, along with him and his assistant, getting the logistics for her. But now since then, I've gotten a couple other calls from 2 other riders in Australia that are wanting to come. So I think it's once it's begun and once all the media buzz and everything that's coming around, it's opened up like, hey, this is a legit thing to come do. So it wasn't discussed before, but I think it's opening the eyes of riders all over.
Okay, Christina, well, there's certainly a lot of women riders out there. My position at Fly Racing, I see quite a bit of that, but how do you see this growing? How do you see this series taking the next step, getting younger girls involved in the sport, and eventually this becoming a worldwide phenomenon, which is WMX?
Well, I think I've seen it even just here recently, just the messages and the things that we've been receiving, some of parents asking about their 13-year-old, 14-year-old, like what do they need to do now to prepare? And that's just in a short matter of time. So I think that's initiative, that first step is definitely already happening organically. But I think having, just even a little bit of changes like we here did recently with adding the women's and girls practice separately at some of these regionals and giving them their own platform gives them a space that they know, okay, number one, that they belong in their own class, they have an opportunity, but what, the biggest question is where does it lead? And having this type of racing and the series to be, especially at the Pro Nationals, I think if anything is just going to give them a goal to shoot for. And, everybody wants a goal and we all work hard for a goal, but without a goal, they're going to just maybe race a couple years and then just quit, go do something maybe in the industry or, just step away from it all because there really isn't anything. But just seeing the outreach of so far that we've gotten, I think this is definitely in the right direction to give the future of the sport the room to grow, but also role models to look after. Seeing the girls lining up at the fence this past weekend, maybe I was able to sit back and look at it and like, okay, there's a bigger purpose and it's right there and in the future of it. And hopefully in the years to come, I want more enrichment activities with whether it's we do some track walks with younger girls and kind of do like what the MXGP does with their MXGP Academy. I think it's a super, program to bring younger athletes and especially the girls in. So I think we look for those type of things and grow it at that regional and local level.
Thank you, Christina. I got an opportunity to watch this opening round on Friday at Fox Raceway and made me very thankful I'm not out there racing because they would have embarrassed me. But it's going to be a great second round. It's going to be a hot one. But good luck to all of your team and all the riders as well.
Great. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay, and now time to start discussing Hangtown, which will include another round of WMX on Friday. Also, SMX Next Motocross, what we formerly knew as the Combines, will have their first race of the year on Friday as well. And everything else that's going to happen Saturday at round 2. 250 riders who had breakout days and those that would like to have round 1 back. We'll get more into the Lawrence versus Tomac and Hunter Lawrence versus Aaron Plessinger and Justin Cooper and other 450 contenders. We'll discuss that. And also the impact this has on the SMX playoff points. How Cooper Webb didn't even finish a moto, yet still actually stretched his point lead in the SMX playoff and World Championship standings. 32nd board, hot topics heading into round 2 of Pro Motocross. Although this one actually goes back before round 1, the AMA announcing the Hall of Fame nominees for this year. Your old buddy, your riding and training partner, the legend Chad Reed, amongst the luminaries on the nominee list.
Yeah, to me, this is a no-brainer for Chad Reed to go in the AMA Hall of Fame. When you look at the longevity, the podium numbers he put up, the number of races, the wins, the championships, he is in that rare space of accumulation and also excellence. There are very few of those that can be that good for that long. And yeah, no doubt about it, Chad Reed is an all-timer in this sport.
Okay, we remind every year when these Hall of Fame nominees open up, this is not just for people within the SMX universe, it's all motorcycling disciplines. So it's not always a guarantee that even superstars like Chad Reed get in. So if you can vote, and for example, lifetime AMA members, if you've been in for 25 consecutive years, that means voting is open. And there are other SMX luminaries on that list. For example, Selvaraj Narayana, who's been at KTM for decades. I just saw him over the weekend at Fox Raceway. He is on the nominee list for industry. So be sure to get your vote in if you can. And then speaking of some history, another rider who knows, could be an AMA Hall of Fame nominee at some point. Two-time 125 National Motocross champion Steve Lamson, NorCal's own. He'll be the Grand Marshal this weekend at Hangtown.
What a legend he is in this area of the country. And this is a national champion in the 125 class. Really never was able to take that step and go win championships on the big bike, which was the 250 at the time. But there was a moment in time where this was the best 125 racer on the planet, bar none. Dominated Motocross of Nations, dominated the AMA Nationals. So for him to come back, this was his home track. I actually practiced with him. I stayed at his house back in the 2001 series for this event. He is going to be so welcomed, and I think you're going to hear a lot of cheering. People are going to be wondering what's happening. It's going to be cheering for Steve Lamson coming back to this event.
Yeah, and highly underrated, almost forgotten, when Star Racing Yamaha first started to become what we know them as now, 2014, when they suddenly started winning races and titles with Jeremy Martin and Cooper Webb and the rest. Lammy was the team manager back then. So when they really started to go to the stratosphere, he was a big part of that. So Lammy's done great things. It'll be fun to see him this weekend. And what else are we going to see? Give us an idea of the track, JT.
Well, Hangtown, I think, is much more liked generally than last weekend. Last weekend was just such a tough track. So Hangtown, the comfort level is going to be a little bit higher. The dirt diggers do such a great job of bringing in outside soil to add traction to it. And if you're looking over the course of the entire calendar, this track has improved the most over the years, I would say, of any. Now, we can't talk about Hangtown without talking about this weekend's weather. Last weekend, beautiful conditions. This weekend, we're talking about 101, 102 on Saturday. That is going to be an extreme test for the riders. So yes, they're going to have to think about the racetrack, think about the settings for the motorcycle, but the conditions and how they handle the heat, I believe, will be the story throughout the weekend and will be much more important on how the results turn out versus anything we'll see on the actual dirt, soil, or an obstacle itself.
Ooh, that's going to be something to watch. You know me, I don't like predicting the mud races on Tuesday, but I will say that it's summertime. Basically, we're going to California. Heat, yeah, you might be able to just count on that one. I'm not pushing back on that at all. And if these things become factors, well, it might affect where the smart money goes. Let's send it to the experts.
Alrighty, James, let's talk NXT bets. We're headed into Hangtown. It's going to be a scorcher this weekend. The big news, Chase Sexton likely to miss a round or two. That news is coming in hot right now. James, it's looking like a two-horse race between Jett Lawrence and Eli Tomac. The odds were showing minus 283 in the futures for Jett Lawrence, a plus 247 for Eli Tomac, and a bit of a distant third for Hunter Lawrence at a plus 558. So, James, they're saying two-horse race from the odds makers.
Yeah, I believe it's a two-horse race too. You saw how epic that last race was at Second Motor at Paula, and both those guys are coming off injury and coming off the couch essentially. So you got to expect they'll be back a little bit better this weekend. It's going to be super hot. And last time, the epic race that Eli had 10 years ago in 2015, where he beat everybody by 30 minutes, it seems like, he's going to try to pull off that memory bank. And then you look at Jett Lawrence, is the only time he's ever missed a podium in a 450 outdoors was last year here. So could you see redemption, or could you see a little bit of tendency of hesitation? We're going to find out, but I believe both those guys will be better. I talked to Jett this weekend. He said they were going to work on the motorcycle. So even last weekend, how dominant he was, there's room for improvement motorcycle. And of course with Eli, the same goes for him. So I'm looking forward to this weekend. It's going to be great. It's going to be hot, but I believe those two is going to be battling again for the win.
Yeah, James, to your point, Hangtown odds, it's very similar to futures. You've got Jett Lawrence at a minus 206, Eli Tomac at a plus 232. So those two guys, again, two-horse race, not surprising. Hunter Lawrence, a plus 614. And then Justin Cooper and Aaron Plessinger, you're looking at a plus 6,800 and a plus 7,700. As great as those guys are, they're just not looking to factor into the odds here this weekend. But You mentioned Eli Tomac in beast mode, man. That second moto in Pala was amazing. Do you expect to see the same thing with the track being a little bit different up in Hangtown between these two guys?
Well, we're going to find out. I think with Eli last weekend, we were talking about an inside line was that both those guys coming off the couch, it would be easier for Jett Lawrence to come off the couch and ride the way he did. One, he's very patient. You know, normally when you come off, things start happening fast. When you miss a bunch of races, you get out there, things start happening fast, you start rushing things. I believe that's what we saw with Eli Tomac, where Jett Lawrence, he rides kind of like how he rides. He's very patient. So when you look at those two, it would be easier for what Jett Lawrence to do and continue to just build off that compared to what we saw with Eli. I do think Eli should be better this weekend. They're going to have to work on the bike. But not only that, Eli had a chance to ride against Jett. He kind of sees where he's good and try not to, hopefully he doesn't get sucked into that, you know, he's going slow right here, so I'm just going to speed into it. So Eli will be better. Like I said, the history is on his side. Mentally, he knows this place. It's going to be hot. So I think both those guys are going to be very patient and let this race come out. But that's why we go racing, Clinton. Hunter Lawrence might be the guy that comes out this week, and we're going to find out in the 500-degree weather.
Yes, we are. The fans win no matter what. Hey, folks, make sure you go check out your local sports book. The odds will change as the betting happens throughout the week. And James, see you in Hangtown.
All right, thanks, boys. Let's return to the 30-second board here. So obviously the Jett Lawrence, Eli Tomac second moto battle gets the headline. But let's not forget, Tomac only got fourth in the first moto. Justin Cooper, a great ride. Hunter Lawrence was great. And then he and Aaron Plessinger put on a spectacular battle. Really, probably even better than the Jett versus Tomac because they passed each other in the second moto. So other 450 riders look good. Yeah,
and it was unfortunate that Jett and Eli were doing their thing out front because the battle behind them in that second moto was raging for 30 minutes between AP and Hunter specifically. And they, you know, AP talked about it after the race. He's like, we were just going at it the whole time, and Hunter actually went off the track on the last lap. That's how AP got into third. Otherwise, it was, you know, the entire way AP was on Hunter's rear wheel. So I think we have to give some credit to them. Justin Cooper should certainly be mentioned as well. That first moto, I can't say it was a shock. We know Justin Cooper's a fantastic pro motocross rider, but he was right in the mix. Like, he had separated himself from everyone else, and he was the top monster Yamaha Star Racing rider, which is what he's setting out to be. So yes, that conversation is at the front. Hopefully we get Chase Sexton back into that talk, but the battle behind them, I think, is going to be raging for weeks to come, and we'll see if they can jump into that fight for possibly a moto win as well.
We've waited basically 3 years to get Eli Tomac versus Jett Lawrence. We talked so much about that Achilles injury to Eli Tomac and how that ended what could have been a Supercross championship in 2023. But let's not forget, at that point, we were 3 weeks away from Eli with a #1 plate in Pro Motocross facing a rookie Jett Lawrence. Didn't get to see it. Finally, they're racing each other in motocross, and it delivered.
It did, and let's just all collectively take a moment and pray, wish, whatever you need to do, whatever's going to make this more likely that we get this 20 more times, do that. Because this is a gift we simply don't get very often. A young rider entering his prime on the top of his game that we've seen, and in the old guard, a rider with all the accolades that Eli Tomac has, still at the top of his game, going head to head. And let's just hope we get Chase Sexton in there and hope some of these other guys can come in, because these are the good old days. This can be the golden era of motocross if we get this type of setup all summer long.
And let's not forget, Jett did win at Fox Raceway, but he always wins at Fox Raceway. He's 8-0, and we've seen an instant replay of that second moto. It was Sexton chasing him in Moto 2 the last 2 years, Tomac this year. But even Jett knows that Hangtown is a very special track for Eli Tomac. I'll get your reaction on the back of what Jett joked about here in the press conference.
Come to memory when he smoked everyone and beat him by a minute or something at Hangtown, almost lapped everyone wait, going Helen as well? Sorry, yeah, I don't know a lot of history about dirt bikes or like anything, so don't give me any trivia questions, but I remember this, and I remember going, that was scary at first. So I'm like, I got to race this guy who's done this.
Okay, so there you go. Even Jett is a little worried about how fast Tomac goes at Hangtown. Could that be a difference maker compared to Fox Raceway?
It could, and Jett simply hasn't been as good at Hangtown as he is at Fox Raceway. So those are two diverging paths. You're going into arguably one of Eli's, or maybe his best track. You know, results can say whatever they want, but as far as form, I think it's one of Eli's best tracks. And then Jett Lawrence, who hasn't always been on his best self. We know the crash last year. That's going to be somewhere in his psyche about the whole championship turning at this very racetrack. So how that all plays out will be very interesting, but it should be mentioned. Don't forget, both of these two are coming back from injury, and we're going to see the biggest heat test that we have seen since probably Fox Raceway 2022, where Eli Tomac won the championship. I cannot remember a day that is going to ask as much from the riders as this will since then. So we can't be sure what we're going to see. Is Jett Lawrence going to be able to manage the pace the way he did at Fox Raceway when it's pushing 102 degrees with 4 laps to go?
Speaking of heat, it was on Jorge Prado. Now, there's a lot of variables for the current MXGP World Champ coming into this race. New bike, new team, never raced on these tracks, format, all that. The heat thing is going to be a little bit different. There are some hot races in MXGP, but in general, the Pro Motocross Series in America in the summertime is considered to be hotter. So a lot stacked up against him, and it showed. This was not an outstanding performance, at least at round one.
It wasn't. This was underwhelming. And, you know, it's not all is lost. The sky hasn't fallen, but this was not what they were hoping for. There's no way that he and his team and those close to him were not a little disappointed with how this went, because if you told me he was a distant third or fourth, I would have said, okay, not a bad start. He understands where he needs to get better. They're working through the bike things. He was nearly a minute down from the lead, and that's simply not what we've seen from Jorge Prado for several years now. So I'm sure there's some soul searching going on this week. I'm sure they're going to go back and try to figure out what was holding him back motorcycle-wise and settings-wise. But like you said, Weege, this is not a great setup going into the weekend where the temperatures are going to be the conversation. And historically, he has not fared all that well in the heat. He's been okay. He's gotten better at it. But going back early in his career, it was a big liability. So he's going to have to show that he can manage the situation in the face of adversity already, where he's already coming off a 7-6 day, not exactly what he'd want. Now he's got even tougher conditions on a track he still hasn't ridden. He's not familiar with the track again. I'm not saying it's going to be better or worse. It's just not an ideal setup for him to make that huge jump forward that he's going to want.
I don't know what the bigger disappointment was. Prado not being anywhere near the podium, or whatever the heck happened to Chase Sexton. That was not it for the number one.
Yeah, that's, outside of severe injury, that's as bad as it can get. You come in, I think everybody was kind of looking at him as the favorite early because he had all the momentum. There really were no questions. He was a known quantity. He was the one we could look at and say we had the least to worry about. And then everything completely comes apart 3 laps in. And you hate to say the championship's over 1 round in, but I don't know that it's ever felt like the championship's over with 1 round in more than it does right now.
Let's talk 250s, which are all the way at the bottom of this chart, because all these stories in the 450s, the 250s, kind of the opposite. Pretty much everything you expected pretty much happened.
Yeah, this was the Haiden Deegan show. And there was a preview, there was an opening act from Chance Hymas. There were a lot of things that you could point to and say, well, that was really interesting, and we should talk about that. But in the end, the main attraction was as advertised. We talked about it. Felt like Haiden was the alpha in this class. He could control the situation. Good start, bad start. Had he tipped over, good qualifying, like whatever. He seems to be in charge. And at the end of the motos, this is the most important part. At the end of the motos, he is much more capable of handling situations than everybody else. And Shimoda kept him close. Let's give him some credit. He kept him honest. But I always like to watch the body language and the condition that riders are in right when they come off the track. They pull their helmet off, they're underneath the tent before they come onto the podium, and I get to speak with them. I want to see what they look like in their most vulnerable moment before they've had a chance to recover. Weege, I'm telling you, he didn't look like he had even raced. He didn't want water. They kept offering him water, and he's like, I'm fine. Like, I don't need anything. He wasn't breathing hard. So that shows me what he has under the hood if he needs it. If somebody wants to take him to 30 minutes and see what he's got in the last 2 laps, watching from Saturday, he has a lot left. And going into what's going to be the toughest test in a couple of years at Hangtown, I don't think anybody's going to be even close to him. I'll just say it here now. I think he wins by a very, very large margin at Hangtown.
So let's go back to the 450 class. I mentioned the Cheshire Cat grin. How about this? Cooper Webb, his bike blows up in the first moto, and he ends up stretching his lead because Chase Sexton didn't finish the second moto. And here's Webb, who we weren't sure if he was really going to even race Pro Motocross. I got confirmation from him. He said last year the thumb was completely torn, had to have surgery. This year, he had a 50% tear in the ligament. It has healed. The thumb is okay. He's planning on being here all summer. And you got to think those SMX seeding points, that's on his mind, JT.
It definitely will be. And I kind of wondered what this summer would be for Webb. You know, would he race early, kind of realize he wasn't going to be that relevant, and then take a hiatus and come back in Concord, North Carolina in September? But I do believe that Sexton's status matters here, because if you can tell Webb, hey, Sexton's out for the foreseeable future, all you have to do is just stick around, get a lot of top 10s, and you're going to have the top seed going in. I believe that truly matters for Webb. Like, he wants that SMX World Championship, and we know, go back and look how important those points were down to the last moto for these championships. Those points and the seeding matters for Webb. So it could be the change in his decision. Like, I for any reason you thought he was going to sit rounds out and take a break, if you tell him that a top seeding is in the cards, I think you see him at all 11.
Okay, we bring in some SMX facts with our statistician, Clinton Fowler. JT and I had a bit of a debate with our colleague Steve Mathis earlier in the week, because even Jett Lawrence says he's a little worried about how good Eli Tomac is at Hangtown. Now, some people, including Mathis, say that Eli's just good everywhere. Hangtown's nothing special. So go to the stats. How good is ET3 at round 2?
Well, I don't know that Hangtown is his best venue, but it is definitely one of the 4 venues on the Pro Motocross circuit that is his strength for sure. I think Jett Lawrence has that memory of 2015 where Eli Tomac absolutely dominated the field. His best lap time was 5 seconds faster than the second place rider. Absolutely amazing. But maybe Jett's points are just simply because last year here, he had a horrendous day. It's the one place that he did not win the overall in his 17 career starts in the class. He went 24-6 for 12th overall. Obviously not the day that anybody expected from Jett Lawrence in 2024. And JT, the thing that really sticks out for me, he's got 6 of 7 second moto wins. To me, that is beast mode, JT.
Yeah, and I think it's nuance. You know, if stats can be misleading at times. I don't know how winning 9 out of 14 motos would be misleading, but apparently it could be in this scenario. But when I think about form, I think about Eli Tomac going in as a 250 rookie and dominating his first race ever. I look at him with one of the largest margins of victory ever in 2015, putting 5 seconds a lap into Ryan Dungey. It's very difficult for me to not think this is one of his best racetracks. And anybody who says it's not, I consider them to be literally insane. So that's what the setup is for Eli Tomac. It doesn't mean he's going to win Hangtown. I just think on the front end of it, the setup is a positive one for him, and that's really important.
Yeah, there's so many ways you can slice these numbers. What was interesting with some of the data you showed, take us through some of the averages, the average finish for Eli at these tracks.
At the top end of it, you've got an average finish of 1.6 at Washougal. At the bottom end, you got Redbud at a 3.9. The third best venue for Eli Tomac, Hangtown. He's got a 1.9% or 1.9 average finish. Pretty impressive to me.
Shift to the 250 class. Someone jumped off the chart a little bit for you at Fox Raceway?
Yeah, I mean, impressive first race by Joe Shimoda, going 2-2 for second overall. Feels reminiscent of him opening the 250 West division in the SuperMotocross series at Anaheim, one earlier this year, where he got his best start to the season with a first. JT, this one for me feels like maybe we get the 2022 version of Joe Shimoda, where he finished second in the championship to Jett Lawrence. He was incredible down the stretch. The last 14 to 16 motos, he finished inside of the top 3. Just absolutely had the speed, the strength down, and maybe he's the one this year to challenge Haiden Deegan, who clearly came out blisteringly fast this last weekend in Palo.
Yeah, I'm just hoping to see the best Joe Shimoda. And this is a racetrack that's very familiar to him. He used to practice here every single week back when he was on Geico Honda several years ago. So he knows this track inside and out. I still think the key for Joe, though, is first lap positioning. And if you look at what he's really struggled with, how he started series slow, the results weren't there, it's because he's 20th on the second lap and he's just fighting his way forward the whole time. Well, if he can start inside the top 5 or 6, I think his pace and his confidence and his experience now in this class will keep him in that podium fight. Now, I don't think it's enough to beat Haiden Deegan. I think Deegan is the class of this field, but I do think Joe, on this form, with a reasonable start, can be a podium mainstay all summer long.
Clinton, thanks for the data. We'll see you next week. Headed to Hangtown now, round 2 of Pro Motocross, round 19 of SMX. A reminder for those watching overseas, continues to be a 50% off discount on the SMX video pass. So go to supermotocross.tv to sign up for that. You can listen in French or Spanish or hear us in English if you're outside the United States. Got to imagine there's some Australian fans that are pumped, maybe some Spanish fans who are hoping to find something to be pumped on, and it could happen this weekend. Kicks off with Race Day Live coverage at 1 o'clock Eastern Time Saturday. That's an hour of practice coverage, and the motos will start at 4 o'clock Eastern Time. And don't forget, halftime show and live post-race show. We weave that all into one gigantic Saturday broadcast, so enjoy it. Boy, round 1, JT, has often been very weird in Pro Motocross. Riders are guessing on setup and how they're going to feel, and they dial it in for round 2. That's intriguing enough, but throw in the potential of like legit heat, which we have oddly not seen a lot over the last few years. And this could really change things.
It could. And it's funny, you know, we go into every round 1 of every championship ever, and we have more questions than we do answers. And we always think that we're going to have every answer we've ever wanted leaving round 1. And then we don't, because we can't really trust the answers yet. And I think that's going to be the case with the conditions going into round 2. Just because we saw something at round 1, it could look a lot different when it's 102 degrees at round 2.
I can guarantee you that 39 other riders on the gate are hoping that's the case in the 250 class. They do not want Deegan to do this because he just, not only does he beat you, but then he twists the knife a little bit more. Those guys are motivated, but we'll see if they can do anything about it. Will it be Eli versus Jett again? Who else can get up there in the 450 class? Maybe some more answers this weekend. See you at Hangtown.